Thank you for having me fill in today for our devilishly handsome host and executive producer, Jensen, who will be back next show. So today's episode will be hosted by Andy and the Hustler. So let's welcome today on the Patron Saint Straight Truth podcast, we have a special guest who is the definition of a misogynistic, womanizing, type A alpha dog. The rules don't apply to me. Humvee, gas guzzling, ruin the environment so I can look good driving. Former politician who can kick your ass. In the gold standard of a Hollywood action star. Let's welcome to the show, Mr. Arnie, the ExTerminator.
Thank you for having me on the show today, and please tell Jensen thank you for giving the opportunity to use his platform to help inform the citizens of this country about how to legally and lawfully get out paying their voluntary compliance income taxes through the IRS Bill of Rights loophole. I'm standing here not as someone refusing to pay taxes, but as someone refusing to be extorted. Let me make that clear. I have paid my fair share of taxes. Every time I filled up my gas tank, I pay taxes. Every time I bought my son clothes for school, I pay taxes. Every time I bought my family breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I pay taxes. Every single dollar I've spent has been taxed during those transactions. So I've fulfilled my involuntary tax obligations, the ones the government requires by law. But where I draw the line is with extra taxes, the ones the government expects me to pay without giving me the chance to make an informed decision. Why should I keep paying more when the government can't even be honest about where my money goes? They've used our hard-earned money to fund secret programs that have been weaponized against the very citizens who fund them. Against me, against you. How is that fair? Let me break it down for you. 1, the Supreme Court's opinion in Flora v. United States, 362 U.S. 145 176 1960 is often quoted for the proposition that our system of taxation is based upon voluntary assessment and payment, not upon the term voluntary compliance, as used in Flora and in IRS publications, refers to our system of allowing taxpayers to determine the correct amount of tax and complete the appropriate returns, rather than having the government determining the correct amount for you. Well, for simplicity, let's break it down into 2 categories: mandatory versus voluntary. Taxes. I've paid all the taxes I'm legally required to pay. Sales tax, excise tax, all of it. But the idea of voluntary compliance means I'm supposed to assess how much more I should contribute, and through extensive research and through the amount of public information that the government and media have made available to me, to make an informed decision. Based on the government's publicized policy of classified information, deep state secrecy, and consistent track record of misconduct for the purpose of personal gain and personal agenda, I've effectively calculated and made an informed decision based on the amount of public information that has been made publicly available to me, and based on the IRS Bill of Rights Article number 1, which states taxpayers have the right to be informed where their money is going and how it's being allocated. And since the government is using my tax dollars to fund a bunch of secret black ops operations, and according to the Doge report, they are funding a bunch of fraudulent and frivolous bullshit, giving trillions of our tax-paying dollars away to a bunch of crooks who are trying to kill us, which means the government is non-compliant, according to the IRS Bill of Rights, Article number 1. So, due to the government failure of staying compliant to the own rules and regulations that they wrote and enforce, that means citizens are no longer required to pay their voluntary compliance income taxes, due to the government failure of staying compliant themselves. And that loophole is lawfully right because of the government's inability to stay compliant with their own rules, laws, and regulations that they write, implement, and enforce, but fail to abide by for themselves. This makes them non-compliant, which means we no longer have to contribute our voluntary compliance income taxes due to their breach of contract, which frees us from the contract and is lawfully, legally, and respectfully correct. So that's how you legally use the loophole to not pay your voluntary compliance taxes. Because to go with is violating your rights under the IRS Bill of Rights. Article 1, the right to be informed. So that's all I have to say for tonight. Thanks for having me on the Patron Saints Straight Truth podcast, hosted by our executive producer, Jensen, and this great cast of guests. Stay tuned for more great information coming this season. Follow us on IG at Patron Saints Podcast. Thank you and good night.